Hi, this is Ed Fitzpatrick. If you enjoy local politics as much as I do, be sure to join our friends at Rhode Island PBS for the show A Lively Experiment. Hosted by Jim Hummel, the weekly series features journalists, pundits, and politicians debating the stories and issues that matter most to us Rhode Islanders. Tune in to A Lively Experiment and be part of the conversation. Fridays at 7 p.m. on Rhode Island PBS and wherever you get your podcasts. From the Boston Globe, this is Rhode Island Report. I'm Ed Fitzpatrick. Welcome back to the podcast where we bring you big conversations from our very small state. We've got a special bonus episode for you today. Earlier this week, my colleague Dan McGowan moderated a discussion about the future of the Rhode Island Foundation, the state's largest funder of nonprofits.
All right, we are going to get started.
He started by talking to the Rhode Island Foundation's president and CEO, David Cicilline, and the foundation's new board chair, Anne Marie Harrington. This is a lightly edited recording of their conversation. I hope you enjoy it.
Thank you, everyone, so much for coming out tonight for another edition of Rhode Map Live, which the Rhode Island Foundation has graciously supported for several years now. This is a really wonderful conversation that we're starting with David Cicilline, of course, who's the president and CEO of the Rhode Island Foundation, and the brand new chair of the foundation board, Anne Marie Harrington. So give it a round of applause for them. I should say, for those who don't know me, I'm Dan McGowan. I write the Rhode Map newsletter every day and read a column for Globe Rhode Island every week. The best part about sitting with David and Anne Marie here is the Rhode Island Foundation, as many of you in this room know, is rolling out kind of a 5-year action plan. And I think many of you have probably seen this in your inbox. Some of you are very intimately aware of this. There's a fun letter at the front from David. It's lovely. David's going to get into this in just a second, but this isn't an overhaul of the organization. This isn't a massive change for the way business is being done at the foundation. But I think what's really nice about what the foundation is doing is they're kind of making it very clear the issues and the topics that they want to cover. We know it's housing and economic mobility, healthy and strong communities, education and student success, climate action and sustainability, and civic and cultural life. And at the center of all of that, and this is something we're going to talk about a lot, is diversity, equity, inclusion, and access. And David's going to talk a bunch about that. But I actually want to start with Anne Marie, because for those of you who don't know Anne Marie, she has a fascinating story. She has literally been involved with the Rhode Island Foundation her entire adult life, and actually while you were in college. And so Anne Marie, for those of you who don't know kind of your background, please tell us about sort of how you got involved with the foundation, first as an intern when you were a student at Bryant, and then flash forward to being the brand new chair of the foundation.
Absolutely. So, well, first of all, thank you all for coming out tonight, especially on this rainy, windy evening. It's great to see everyone here. And thank you, Dan. You have made an impact in Rhode Island, so we appreciate the work that you've been doing for our community. So, yeah, I've actually been involved with community foundations, and particularly the Rhode Island Foundation, for 30 years. And so maybe not all of my adult life, but thank you, Dan, but not quite. So, yeah, I actually, it kind of feels like a full circle moment for me being the new chair of the foundation, because I've been an intern with the Rhode Island Foundation 30 years ago when I was getting my Master of Social Work. I have a business degree, but I also went back to school, got my Master of Social Work, and I did my internship with the Rhode Island Foundation in the mid-90s. Eventually fell in love with the web, this new thing called the web, and decided that I wanted to get involved in that. And lots of familiar faces in the audience from my time when I ran Embolden. But while I was with Embolden, I worked with the Rhode Island Foundation to build their website. So I've been not only an intern, I eventually actually was hired by the foundation, and then started my own business and became a partner with the foundation, and then eventually a donor, and now a board member, and now the board chair. So while I was running my company, I became involved with community foundations and started working after the Rhode Island Foundation started working with the Hartford Foundation for Public Giving, and then the New Haven Community Foundation, and then eventually 200 community foundations, and fell in love with community foundations. Community foundations are incredibly unique entities. I think we're really special. Community foundations are about you. It's about us as a community. I think we're a really unique entity in philanthropy. And Rhode Island Community Foundation, the foundation here, I also think is very special. Having been in board meetings, board rooms as a consultant with community foundations, seeing people look to Rhode Island as this entity that is doing really great work, making a big impact. So we're kind of known around the country for being a very well-run entity. So community foundations are special. I think particularly Rhode Island Foundation being around for over 100 years. So I've just been absolutely thrilled to have most of my adult life involved with this foundation. So thank you for asking that.
Yeah, thank you. David, I want you to give us an overview of the action plan, but especially the thing I know you're extremely proud of is the amount of work that went into this, in talking to the community, in surveying community partners, in really listening to everybody in the community to really come up with this action plan. So I'd love you to, again, give us a little bit of an overview, but also talk about the work that went into this over the last year.
Sure. Thank you again for hosting us, and thank you everyone for being here, and thank you to my new chair for her brilliant. As she sort of quickly said, she worked with 200 community foundations, but you can imagine with that kind of experience what a great treasure Emery Harrington is going to be as our board chair. So thank you. So when we, it was sort of a natural thing when you come to an organization that you want to do some reflection on how the organization is run, what are the priorities, how do we do our work. So we spent a long time, a full year really, focused on the work that we're presenting tonight in this action plan. And it was important to me and really to the team at the Rhode Island Foundation that the action plan be informed by the community. I didn't want to just come up with an action plan that was my ideas or even the incredible team at the Rhode Island Foundation. We wanted to be certain it reflected Rhode Islanders' views about the greatest challenges they faced and the greatest opportunities that exist in our state. So we did a very intense process over those 12 months. Community gatherings, community dinners, the Together RI dinners, surveys, online polling, focus groups, just many different ways to engage the community, to share their ideas about what they thought were the most important things for the Rhode Island Foundation to focus on in the coming years. And at the end of the process, we consulted with or heard from over 2,000 Rhode Islanders. And so what we heard from them is reflected in this book. Anyone who came, I know there's folks I saw tonight who are at one of our community dinners, you'll see your voices, the ideas that you share with us in this action plan. And what we heard was that, this deep respect for the Rhode Island Foundation, the importance of what we do as an organization to really support nonprofits doing really critical work in our state. There was tremendous interest in us continuing to be a leader in supporting education in our state, healthcare as an important priority, economic mobility and housing rose as real concerns. The two areas that we heard I think that are new, we do work in both areas, but will be, I think, areas that we'll do more work in are climate action. Lots and lots of people share with us that we're the ocean state. There's a lot of important work that needs to be done to protect Rhode Island from the consequences of climate action. And so you'll see that reflected in the action plan. And then virtually every gathering had some folks who shared with some anxiety about the divisions that exist in our state and in the country. Is there more that the Rhode Island Foundation can do to help bridge divides and bring people together and improve the kind of civic health of our state? And so you'll see in the action plan a new community priority called civic health and cultural life. That is supporting arts and cultural organizations, but also improving the civic health of Rhode Island. In all of it, what was very important to the team at the Rhode Island Foundation, to me, and to the community was that we understand the commitment that is necessary to ensuring that all of this work is done in a way which is inclusive and equitable and accessible to everyone and really ensures that diverse voices are served and heard. So that's why it's at the center of all of this work. But I'm most proud of the fact that this is a product really from Rhode Islanders because of a very deliberate attempt to listen carefully to them, and then the contributions of an incredible team at the Rhode Island Foundation and ultimately approved by the board.
I'm curious on the diversity, equity, inclusion, and access part. I mean, you experienced this from your role in politics before, but we've all seen, I think, not just with the election, but I think we've seen some pushback towards the idea of diversity, equity, inclusion, and access, and I think it's often misguided and misplaced, but there's fear in some communities, and I wonder how much I imagine with a lot of the people in this room, it's not a deep concern, but how much, as you were crafting this plan and making sure that this was kind of the center of everything, how much did you prepare for pushback, maybe from donors, maybe from anybody that said, wait a minute, what is the Rhode Island Foundation going too woke, for example?
Yeah, I mean, it's very important. If we're going to make real progress on all the areas that we describe in the action plan, we have to acknowledge the real issues that inequities have presented. And you can't achieve the kinds of outcomes that we all want for kids in public schools if you don't address the achievement gaps that exist. The same with healthcare disparities, the same with economic opportunities. The interesting thing about DEIA work is it reminds me a little bit of what people used to say about Obamacare. They say, oh, I really hate Obamacare, but then I love the fact my kids can stay on their plan until they're 26. I love the fact that there's coverage for pre-existing conditions. And I think when you talk to most people, most Rhode Islanders, and you say, do you support approaching this in a way that ensures every voice is heard, that everyone can be included, that there are diverse views represented? People say, of course, that makes good sense. So it will improve the quality of what we do. We're a community foundation. At the core of our work is serving the community. That means all of the community. And I'm very proud that the board of the Rhode Island Foundation has supported this. We've just doubled down in a serious way with a new plan. We did a needs assessment to look at the work we do internally and externally to be sure it's accessible and inclusive and that diverse voices are heard. And I know there are some organizations that have been retreating from that work. It's really hard as a community foundation where your responsibility is to serve everyone to retreat from that, nor do I think you should. But I'm fortunate. I think our board has strongly embraced that. It's reflected in our action plan. And I think that's what Rhode Islanders expect. We heard that in all of the gatherings we had in preparation for this action plan was to make sure that the work we were doing reached everyone in Rhode Island, from Woonsocket to Newport to Providence and beyond. And that means being sure that we're making an effort to reach every community, because we're the Rhode Island Foundation. We serve every Rhode Islander. We're here to make life better for every Rhode Islander.
Anne-Marie, for my friends here in the nonprofit community, I think anytime I hear about one of my largest funders potentially changing or creating a new plan, I think I would get a little bit worried, right? Is this going to mean a cut to my organization? Is it going to mean changes in the way we fund? So can you talk about, I'd love you to be able to kind of reassure people that, as I said in the opening, this is not a dramatic change in how the Rhode Island Foundation is doing business, but, for people who think that, are reading this for the first time and they see maybe an emphasis on more collaboration, things like that, what do you say to people who might be a little concerned about what is this going to mean for me or for my organization?
Yeah, I think the first thing, to go back to these ideas were validated and actually we heard, listened, and consulted with people in Rhode Island. So these are a reflection of what our community needs. We know that in order for us to make a meaningful impact, that we have to focus on these six key priority areas. The other thing is this really is an evolution of the work that we've been doing. We've been doing really important work together, collaboratively, for many, many years now. And so we're looking at this as the next step on where we need to go, the time and place that we are now, particularly when we look at kind of doubling down or tripling down on DEIA. We know that is absolutely integral. Making systemic change is important and integral to this work and in order for us to move the needle in a positive direction. So I would say this is a reflection of our community. We heard from our community. This is an evolution of the work that we're doing. And in order for us to do this, we're going to do it with transparency, with accountability. We're going to continue to listen. We're going to continue to learn. We're going to do this together. And I'm particularly excited, and I think maybe this is a little bit of the entrepreneur in me, and also being a nonprofit, in nonprofit world as well, is looking at innovation and collaboration. Magical things can happen together. Is it work? Absolutely, but we can do this together. So if we look at this very creatively and dynamically and come together as a community, we will be able to make meaningful change. So I think it's hopeful. We'll be very optimistic about this. It will be some work, but I think it's a good thing. It's where we need to go.
Yeah, one thing I want to add to that is, the other thing that we are doing as part of this, because part of our success is going to be our ability to raise the resources necessary to do this work. And we've designed it in a way that, if people are interested in supporting all of the work of the action plan, all 6 community priorities, you can contribute to the Fund for Rhode Island and contribute to all of them. There are some people who are going to say, look, I'm really interested in education. I'm not so interested in DIA or in healthcare. We have a separate fund to do that. So the beauty of this is, whatever people's interest, however they want to be part of this effort and support it, we have tailored ways to do that, to speak to the passions of Rhode Islanders, whether it's for all of it, for pieces of it, or just for one particular part of it. That's the beauty of a community foundation, is we can turn your generosity into a meaningful force for good to make real change, but we can also accommodate what interests you most as a donor, as someone who's a partner with us in one of these 6 areas.
Yeah, talk about that donor strategy, because I think one of the things that we always hear about the Rhode Island Foundation, I think I write it every year, is you're in that situation where a lot of your funds are donor restricted, right? People like to sort of allocate money towards their projects and the things they support the most. I feel like in rolling out this action plan, it almost broadens the spectrum. To your point, I mean, if I hit the Mega Millions on Friday, you're going to come to me and ask me for money, and I'm going to say, I want to support education because that's the thing I care about the most. But rather than me saying I very specifically want to focus on, the students at Rhode Island College, you might say to me, look, you should put the money into education in general because it's going to go much further. Is that fair? Is that a fair way to describe it?
The Rhode Island Foundation is the largest funder of nonprofits in our state. We're the 2nd oldest community foundation in the country. We have a team of folks at the Rhode Island Foundation who are real experts. They know the community, they know the organizations, they know who's doing impactful work. And so what we realize is donors who have funds at the Rhode Island Foundation rely on the Rhode Island Foundation to help them decide how to invest their philanthropy. And what this new action plan and the approach we're now taking is going to allow us to much more tightly align our donor-advised fund giving with the foundation-directed giving, so that when donors say, I'm interested in education, we'll be able to share with them the things we're investing in and invite them to co-fund with us and to be part of the work that we're doing. We've already started to do that, and there's tremendous interest because folks come to the Rhode Island Foundation because they trust the judgment of the people who have worked there in the Grants and Community Investment Department. These are incredible individuals who know every organization, every leader, the work they're doing. So they're great repositories of lots of good information that will make sure your generosity is done in the most impactful way.
And we already have alignment between donor-directed giving and from foundation-directed granting as well. A very large percentage, I think it's 60% of the $89 million that were granted out either from the donor-directed or from foundation were to the same organization. So there's alignment there. So it's a matter now of kind of coming together and having the 6 community priorities that you can focus on. So every dollar that a donor decides to give to one of those community priority areas will have a meaningful impact.
And so give me like a high-level example here of what's different about the way the Rhode Island Foundation might fund a project around, let's say, healthy communities in the coming years as opposed to, let's say, last year. What will change in the process?
So the grant-making process has also undergone some transformation. There will be, and this will sort of be has been articulated to grantees already, but in order to encourage more collaboration within the Rhode Island Foundation team, and also to encourage organizations to think about how they can work together with other organizations to even have greater impact, we've created kind of 3 new funding pools. The first is what we're calling community priorities. Those are grants that will support any organizations that are advancing one of the 6 community priorities. The second grant is called Catalyst, and this is going to be for bigger, kind of more innovative, multi-year grants that will very likely almost require coordination and collaboration among organizations to demonstrate that they can work together and have even greater impact. And it's going to really invite new thinking, innovation, collaboration, and also provide greater resources over multiple years to have even greater impact. And then the third area is going to be capacity building to help organizations develop greater capacity to have more impact in the work they're doing. We do that already, a really important part of what we do.
Yeah. And Marie, I think that capacity building part of this is so important. We talked about this last week, but I just know so many nonprofits in our state that are trying their best, but they're facing sort of dwindling resources. I'm gonna ask you the question about sort of government funding, but forget resources. I mean, there are just a lot of organizations in our state that they need a more active board. They need to have a better trained board to be making better decisions about organizational goals, sometimes about finances. So can you talk a little bit about sort of what the Rhode Island Foundation wants to do with nonprofits, particularly smaller or newer nonprofits, on that front?
Yeah, absolutely. So, there's a lot of boards, there are a lot of nonprofits in Rhode Island, and there's a lot of boards in Rhode Island. Providing technical assistance and kind of capacity building and knowledge building for the board is absolutely integral. Mm-hmm. I think that we've heard that, right? We heard that from the community in terms of what their needs are, and I think there's a yearning for that in our community. If we can build the boards, help provide that capacity and that knowledge and that technical assistance, then all boats will rise with that great tide. Yeah.
We have a couple, I just got the 5-minute warning to switch panels, so I want to go over a couple of quick topics. Sure.
I just wanted to tell you one story before you switch topics, because I heard it today, and it's such a great example for anyone out there who's wondering, like, can my generosity, can my contribution to the Rhode Island Foundation to support this organization or that organization really make a difference? So a team member today at the Rhode Island Foundation shared a story with me about his son who had an interest in playing a musical instrument. So he went to Community Music Works, and he studied there for a while, ultimately became a musician, ultimately signed up to be in the Army, became in the Army band, then went on to be successful, became an engineer, buy his own house. And it all started with his love of music and becoming a musician at Community Music Works, an organization we support that does incredible work. That little act of generosity that connected that young man to music had an impact for his entire life. And this dad shared this story with me, and it's just an example of what a difference your generosity can make when it's guided in the right way, how it can have a lifelong impact on someone.
That's beautiful. One of the things that we know is happening, again, it's not just the nonprofit community, it's pretty much all across Rhode Island, but we know that we're seeing American Rescue Plan funding dry up. I think a lot of organizations are facing really difficult decisions. We know we're seeing it in government, but it's even more dire in some ways at the nonprofit level. Whenever these kind of conversations come up, people turn to organizations like the Rhode Island Foundation and say, can you make up the difference? That's a difficult endeavor. You give out $89, $90 million a year. It's a lot of money, but you don't have all the money in the world to give out to organizations to kind of help them balance budgets. But what are you doing to assist these nonprofits as they kind of transition away from the kind of gusher of money that they've had for the last couple of years?
Yeah, this is a really important part of the work of the Grants and Community Investment team. There are ongoing conversations with, sort of every sector. We've done a significant amount of work to understand the challenge that arts organizations are currently facing, and really trying to put together some good information so we can understand what role we can play and how we can be helpful. Same with workforce development as a more recent example. There's a significant reduction in funding by the federal government in this area as well. And you're right. I mean, it's wonderful that people think of the Rhode Island Foundation, which is great. Someone called us a couple weeks ago and asked us to fix the Washington Bridge. I said, we don't actually do that. But it speaks to, I think, the high regard folks have for the Rhode Island Foundation. But the expert, obviously sometimes it's resources, and we try to, of course, do all that we can to support organizations doing important work, and we're the largest funder of nonprofits for that. But in addition to that, our team does a lot to help organizations and sectors think about what are the long-term implications of what's happening. Are there some folks who can help think about helping you raise money and help you do more strategic planning, help you think about opportunities that might exist for funding in other places, or to merge operations of two nonprofits. So we have a really terrific community investments team that's really thinking about what can we do, both as Erin Marie said, to help your board have the strength they need to lead the organization. What can we do to help support you during this transition? That's a regular part of what we do every day.
I can't let you leave without talking about local journalism. One component of the civic and cultural life pillar that you guys are supporting, it right up front mentions local journalism. We've talked about this before. I think I said this last year. My sort of secret fantasy here is the Rhode Island Foundation buys the Providence Journal and we save the damn paper. I recognize that's not necessarily what's in the cards right away, but I think you have a little bit of news on Press Forward and some of the work that you want to do to support local journalism. So talk about that a little bit.
So the Rhode Island Foundation has supported local journalism for many, many years because we understood then, and we still understand, that ensuring people have access to trustworthy, reliable information is central to the functioning of a democracy and of civil society, and it's a really important responsibility. And so our priority about civic health is how do we support that ecosystem that's already developing here in Rhode Island. And we have submitted an application, and the Van Buren Foundation is doing it with us as a co-applicant to the MacArthur Foundation, who has committed spending $500 million to support local journalism by establishing these Press Forward chapters. And so we've submitted an application to become a Press Forward chapter here in Rhode Island, which will allow us to continue and to increase our investment in supporting a good ecosystem of lots of good local journalism to support the civic health of Rhode Island.
And I should say, I think that go journalism. I think Press Forward has 31 local chapters around the country, all of which are have a backer that is a community foundation. I think this comes from the Miami Foundation, correct? But they have community foundations in communities all over the country that are supporting this. And the idea, right, is that, you know, whether it's nonprofit news or supporting, you know, a journalist at an organization, or it's a little bit like Report for America, folks know a little bit about that. But that's what we're talking about here, right? It's not starting a new news organization. It's probably not funding the Boston Globe, quite frankly. It's more of trying to build that ecosystem that you're talking about.
That's right, and we're very lucky that some of the folks are in the room tonight who are part of nonprofit news organizations that are providing really important reporting and news coverage. And the Rhode Island Foundation is not going to undertake becoming a participant in that, but supporting organizations in the ecosystem that's producing trustworthy, reliable news. And the MacArthur Foundation, as I said, committed $500 million to this effort. So we want to be sure that we're good partners and that we can both do our part as the Rhode Island Foundation, but do it in partnership with this national effort.
I still think we should buy the Journal, and let's fix it. Folks, big round of applause for David Cicilline and Anne-Marie Harrington. I know we're moving very quick, but I want to respect everybody's time, so we're going to do a quick 2-3 minute shift into our next panel. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Thanks, Dan.
When you want to go beyond the headlines, let me recommend Rhode Island PBS Weekly. Rhode Island PBS Weekly is an award-winning news magazine broadcast that gives you the full story, powered by investigative journalism and narrative storytelling. New episodes of Rhode Island PBS Weekly drop Sundays at 7:30 p.m. on Rhode Island PBS. Watch past episodes at ripbs.org/weekly. That's ripbs.org/weekly.
Let's get back to action. We have an all-star panel here for our second discussion. 3 nonprofit leaders in our state who are beneficiaries of the Rhode Island Foundation. Starting far left, Lamont Gordon. He's the executive director of College Visions. Yeah, we'll let you do an applause. Sure. Lisa Gillette, of course, is the executive director of Foster Forward. And Dr. Amy Nunn, who's the CEO of the Rhode Island Public Health Institute. I have a bunch of questions for you guys and your sort of work with the Rhode Island Foundation, but I'd love, starting with you, Lamont. For folks who don't necessarily know College Visions, give us an overview of the work you do and your sort of relationship with the Rhode Island Foundation now.
Thank you. So our mission is to empower young people from urban communities in Rhode Island to pursue and earn a college degree. We were started in 2004 with 10 students in Providence, and we've grown to serve over 500 young people from all 4 urban core cities and some urban ring cities daily, every year currently. We have a high-touch model. We provide personalized support to students from the very beginning of the college application exploration process all the way through college enrollment, and once they arrive on campus, we provide ongoing support to make sure that they can graduate. Our students are typically the first in their families to go to college, low-income, Pell eligible, and predominantly Black and Latino. Our work is very much about equity and access. We believe that every young person in the state who wants to go to college and has the potential should be supported in that process.
It's 2.
If you look at the urban core, just under half, or 49%, of young people who graduate from high school actually enroll in college. Then there's something called summer melt, where nationally 10 to 40% of young people who apply to college, get accepted, and commit in the spring or summer don't show up in the fall. And then of those who do enroll in Rhode Island, only 43% of low-income students graduate 6 months later. So if you are a first-generation student, you're going to run into roadblocks on this journey to higher education, and our job is to help students overcome those challenges. Our model has proven to be highly effective. 100% of our students enroll in college, and over 70% graduate 6 years later. So those are some of the outcomes. Thank you. And briefly, before I talk about our partnership with the Rhode Island Foundation, I want to say our work is more than just about college access and completion. On a deeper level, we are helping young people believe in themselves and see their potential. It's also, while earning a college degree is a significant accomplishment for first-generation students, something that we should pursue and applaud and celebrate, earning a college degree is not the end of the story, right? It's just the beginning. So our longer-term vision is that our students are going to graduate from college, build meaningful careers, and become the next generation of leaders in our state. And so College Visions and our partners like the Rhode Island Foundation are really investing in the next generation of leaders, in particular, leaders who reflect the communities that we serve. Rhode Island Foundation has been an amazing partner. We, in some ways, consider them an anchor partner in the sense that we get definitely generous support from the foundation, and then we're able to leverage that support to get funding from other foundations and other organizations. That funding comes in multiple ways. One is sort of direct grants, which comprise a significant portion of our budget. But then we also get money through some of those donor-advised funds that David was talking about earlier. One of my goals at College Visions is to sort of diversify our revenue streams because you don't want to be over-reliant on any one bucket. And increasing individual giving has been a goal of ours, and some of our largest individual donors have come through us through the foundation. And finally, the foundation is really a thought partner for us. As they were saying earlier, in my experience, they understand the issues, they get it, they really understand them in a deep way, and so in conversations with folks at the foundation, they really are thought partners, helping us think through our work and our challenges and helping us address them.
One of the things that I just love about College Visions is if you walk into, this is a couple of years now since I've done this, but walking into your office and watching sort of the scrappy nature of advisors and working with students and talking about getting that application in and then getting the letter the letter of acceptance and how much you celebrate every single one of those. I think your office is filled with banners from every college that all your students get accepted to. A small little personal note on this for College Visions. And I'm going to embarrass him a little, but my very first person that I met as a young AmeriCorps member when I first moved to Providence was my friend Vin Marzullo in the back over there, who was an AmeriCorps Vista, the head of AmeriCorps Vista. And a few years go by, and I'm a journalist just starting out, and I was asked to write for the Providence Phoenix at the time about, I think we called them community heroes. And I went to Vin, I don't know if he remembers this, but I said, do you got anybody in mind who just really knocks it out of the park and who you just think super highly of? And his answer was Simon Moore, who was the original founder of College Visions, and I was able to write up and spend a day with him at College Vision. So very near and dear to my heart, and thank you for all the work that you do. Lisa, let's talk about what Foster Forward does, and I know you got your hands everywhere at this point, so talk a little bit about that and then your relationship with the foundation.
Sure. So Foster Forward actually was founded almost 30 years ago around a kitchen table of a group of foster parents, and originally was known as the Rhode Island Foster Parents Association. We changed our name in 2012 to Foster Forward to better reflect the focus that was emerging for us around transition age youth who were leaving the foster care system and emancipating to a very rocky young adulthood. And a lot of national studies are now showing that 40% of our country's chronically homeless are people who have aged out of the foster care system. So we knew that we were at the nexus of, a really important moment in the lives of these young people, and that we needed to think differently about the supports that they needed. From an equity lens, we know that child welfare systems have historically over-surveilled Black and brown families, so we automatically have disproportionality in who is in the foster care system to be served, but we're also seeing tremendous disparities in outcomes. So in order to really tackle that, we need to focus both on the young people who are leaving care to achieve better, more equitable outcomes for them, but we also need to think about how do we close down our child welfare system from the outside in, and what are the really large actions that we can take together that create the conditions for all families to thrive in community and not need systems like foster care. So we started doing a lot of work around housing because that was the biggest challenge that our young people were facing. And through our relationship with incredible partners in the community who are here tonight, the leadership from Crossroads, Family Service of Rhode Island, and One Neighborhood Builders, and with the support of the foundation, we were able to come together to create the Taunton Avenue Collaborative, which is a partnership that enabled us to acquire and now develop a 3-acre property on a blighted lot in East Providence that will yield 144 units of 1, 2, and 3-bedroom apartments. 20 of them will be for young people leaving foster care, but another 20 will be for families that are currently DCYF involved and boarded in hotels. And then there will be homeless veterans, other individuals and families who are currently experiencing homelessness. And then overall, 60% of the units will be low and moderate income housing that we know we need desperately for all Rhode Islanders. It's an opportunity for us to do some radical placemaking and really re-envision what's possible when individuals and families have the resources that they need right on site. And that project wouldn't be coming to fruition with shovels in the ground in April for the first 96 units across 2 buildings. And hopefully by later in the year, we will have the final funding. We're really excited about Yes on 3 and the advocacy from the foundation and the way that that's contributing to a new pool of low-income housing tax credits so that we can go after the final $9 million that we need to do the last 49 units. But it truly went from a dream and a blighted property to a reality through the partnership that we have with the foundation.
Amy, you should tell us like a negative story about the foundation, something David has done. I kid.
I only have great things to say. My name is Amy. I am the CEO of the Rhode Island Public Health Institute. Our mission is to reduce health disparities in Rhode Island and beyond, and I really feel that the foundation has helped us grow into a healthy, thriving organization that serves our diverse community in all things focused on promoting health equity. So our mission is to reduce health disparities, and a lot of people know our programs better than our overall organization. So one of my jobs is to link the two. We own and operate the state's only LGBTQ clinic. It's called Open Door Health, and a lot of people have heard of it. We serve about 8,000 patients now. One of the things that the foundation did that was so impactful was to take a big chance on us at the beginning. I'm kind of a go big or go home person, for better or for worse. Sometimes that gets me in trouble. But I asked the foundation to make a multi-year commitment to us when we were opening our clinic, and they recognized that there was an unmet need for services for the LGBTQ community. And they've really supported so many things that other organizations weren't willing or able to take a risk on. A couple of recent examples include supporting the opening of a new behavioral health program. Many of us who've sought mental health services, may have struggled to get a referral, and you get referred to one person who refers you to another person who refers you to another person who may not pick up the phone, and you might not ever get a visit for psychiatry or therapy or anything like that. And one of the things that the foundation has supported is an opportunity for us to offer all of those services in-house, same day. And that's something we're really proud of. Also, we led the state's MPOX response. Believe it or not, we had trouble getting funding for that in 2022, just when things calmed down with COVID. MPOX appeared, and a lot of the safety net health centers around the state were really taxed and strained from being understaffed from COVID, and weren't really able to step up to the plate. We felt we had to, and the foundation supported all of our work for that. They've also supported a lot of our work related to food insecurity. We run the nation's largest mobile produce market that serves people in food deserts and food swamps. And we have a program that doubles the value of the dollar when people buy fresh produce with their EBT cards. And we're really proud of that. And we've been able to leverage that for advocacy around a statewide program that does that now at every single Walmart and Stop and Shop across the state. So when people shop with EBT cards at Walmart and Stop and Shop now in Rhode Island, all over the state, the value of their dollar is doubled if they buy fruits and vegetables. That program has already reached 90,000 people, 90,000 households, and that really wouldn't have been possible without the support of the foundation for our mobile produce market to prove that it worked, and then partnership with the foundation to try to scale all of that in partnership with the state in retail settings. And those are just some concrete examples of some of the work that we're really proud of that I think goes a long way to reach some of the communities with a lot of unmet health needs and a lot of people of color and LGBTQ persons around the state.
Amy, I want to stay with you because that Food on the Move program that you were just talking about with providing a 50% discount on produce purchased through SNAP, there's a key part that we didn't mention there, and there's a potential that it's going to go away, and that's a kind of a federal government problem as we're seeing money dry up. I'd love you to talk about sort of what comes next, because that is a vital resource and lifeline for, like you said, tens of thousands of Rhode Islanders. So where are we going from here on that program?
So that program is actually called Eat Well, Be Well. That's the one that takes place in retail grocery stores. Our mobile produce market is called Food on the Move. But you can support both of them.
You should.
and that was one of those gems that was funded by an ARPA grant allocated by the legislature actually to DHS. So we were their technical assistance partner on the SNAP incentives. I never would have thought, even though I'm from Arkansas originally, that I would be holding hands with Walmart and retail grocery stores, but that's where people buy their food. And so we believe that it's important to partnership with whomever we can to advance our health equity goals. That is a pilot project. It has been wildly successful. We have proven, I'm a scientist by training, and we've been doing research about this program as well. We've proven that that's had a really positive impact on people's healthy eating behaviors and also their ability to buy healthy foods. I think there's this myth that people want to sit around and eat Cheetos and Doritos and junk food. No, people want to eat healthy. it's just really expensive right now. It's always expensive, but it's more expensive than ever now. So we are really working closely to try to sustain that program beyond the ARPA pilot. Obviously, it's a difficult fiscal climate, and we're a little apprehensive about the incoming administration and whether SNAP's going to get cut across the board. But we're optimistic that we can actually, I hope and believe that we can get this great program out of Rhode Island. That's my goal on a federal level, is to show that this has worked and it's a model that can be replicated across the country. And I hope that by partnering with the private sector and the state and nonprofit organizations, that it's something that might have bipartisan support, both here, but also more importantly at the federal level.
You and I talked offline about this, but and you've been pretty consistent that this is sort of a federal solution that's needed. Can you just, for people in this room who might be very supportive of this program, what kind of gap are we talking about? What do you need to keep this program alive?
Well, you'd be surprised how far the dollar goes. The legislature allocated $11.5 million, and about only $6 million of those have been expended. So the burn rate is about $500,000 a month doing this across the entire state. One would think that it would be a lot more expensive. The other thing that we might consider is having a means test. So if we need to control costs, we might consider giving priority to people with larger families or families with children. There are lots of different alternatives to closing the program altogether. So those are just some options that I would put out. I am actually optimistic about the federal prospects of that program. It might take a while. I mean, it took us almost 10 years to put this on the map, but I think we've done it and we've been able to scale it across the state. So I won't give up hope with the new administration. And, I will say that the first Trump administration, while we may be apprehensive about some changes, funded some really important work. And so we hope that not all of the federal dollars dry up. It is something a lot of us are nervous about, but hopefully some of the really important programs can survive.
Yeah. Lisa, you talked about the housing component of what you're doing, because I know it's so important, and that's sort of a way, I think, to build real sustainability within your organization too, right? It allows you to have different paths of revenue and things like that. I think your ultimate goal is to have, is it 110 units eventually? And it's a little bit down the line. It's not like you're trying to do that next year, but can you talk about sort of the goals beyond the project in East Providence that you were talking about? How do you get to 110?
Yeah, I mean, we've had some of these same growth opportunities and now potentially challenges at the federal level. Hopefully things will be good. But what got us started on this pathway to 110 units for the young people we serve is that during the pandemic, Congress, in a bipartisan effort, recognized that letting young people leave the foster care system when we were asking everyone in this country to shelter at home, emancipating them to no one, was not a good idea. So they allowed young people to stay in foster care a little longer, and in a bipartisan effort authorized a housing choice voucher that entitled to young people leaving foster care, like a Section 8 voucher, up to 36 months of subsidized rental support, and they paid 30% of their income, not 30% of the rent. And so we worked really hard with DCYF in Rhode Island and Rhode Island Housing to bring these vouchers to young people, and we got them in the hands of young people in Rhode Island, and it was like a winning lottery ticket that they couldn't cash because they couldn't find an apartment or a landlord who was willing to rent to them. So that's what got us started. We got the board, off the fence. We had a donor that gave us $250,000, and we went out to market and we bought our first multifamily that had 3 units. And then within a year, we went back out to market and we were able to take advantage of Rhode Island Housing Site Acquisition Program. We got a second property that had 4 units, and then the following year we went back out again and got 2 more units. So that's gotten us to 9, right? And the good news is the HUD fair market rate actually pays more money in than it costs us to manage these units. So it's creating a small revenue stream back to the organization that's durable revenue. But to the point of accelerating to 110, we can't lather, rinse, and repeat on that forever, and it's not increasing housing stock. And we know we're about 24,000 units shy of what would be a healthy rental market. So that's when we started partnering with local community development corporations. We also just looked and said, how is the landscape changing, and how are the aligned contributions of other organizations supporting this effort too? Adoption Rhode Island was out there with Marathon Builders doing Copley Chambers, and that was 26 units. So together, I think as a system, we are going to get to a place of this 110 units. And I think what's really hopeful about it is as organizations doing shared work together, I think it's been inspiring to people in the community. I look at our relationship with the foundation, both grants that we've been able to get and donor-directed funds. We did the math. It's been over $1.4 million over the last 7 years. And so I think when the community sees us doing work at scale, they respond in kind. And that really creates more abundance. And as we're staring down some of the other challenges and fiscal cliffs that are coming our way across our programs, the SNAP program's vital, not just for food security, but also for workforce development. We had braided federal SNAP E&T dollars with our non-federal investments in workforce development for youth and foster care, and that's giving us, more resources to provide high-quality work experiences and experiential learning for these young people. So all of these things kind of hang together, but for us, the opportunity to collaborate and partner in ways that are creating durable revenue back to the organization, that innovation is the thing that's going to help us weather any storm that we face in the future. So that's the part of it I'm most excited about.
I feel like Foster Forward embodies what David was talking about when it comes to that collaboration that is needed in our state. You work with so many different organizations. I feel like it's that's very powerful, and it's going to be needed over the next couple of years. Lamont, one of the things on the sort of college access kind of conversation, it's hard not to notice this shift overall in what people kind of perceive about higher education. I'm often the person that would say, when I hear someone say college isn't for everybody, the problem is that we say that about other people's children, not our own children. But I'm curious, you work with young people every day. Has that conversation shifted for you as an organization and as a leader? Are you getting more students who are saying, I don't actually want to do college, but I want to be involved with this organization? Or are you still pretty focused on making sure you have that kind of pathway to go to a 4-year school?
Yeah, absolutely. That has not been our experience. We have, the demand has not decreased for our work.
So much so that you're in Woonsocket now, right?
So much so that we're expanding, we're growing. We just recruited our largest CAP class ever. So that's not our experience. Interesting, I was, the Pell Institute and the Rhode Foundation did a study recently where they talked to Black, Latino, Indigenous students and asked them this very question. And 94% said that college is important, it will affect my future. And so I think that if you talk to certain populations, particularly the population that we work with, there's a different story that you get in terms of how to the extent to which they value college.
I got about the 5-minute warning 7 minutes ago, but I have one more question for each of you, and it's the same question, but it's this conversation around that government kind of funding cliff that we're facing. And I know you guys have different sort of experiences with the federal government or the state government when it comes to funding. Lamont, you get a little less than the two other organizations, but when we hear about sort of this cliff that is coming and is really already here, and then you hear about what's going on, what the foundation is saying, and wanting more collaboration. As I said before in the first panel, I think a lot of nonprofit leaders hear that and think, "Are you going to try to merge organizations?" And what do you say to people out there, funders, donors here, but also just people who are informed or who want to be informed about this, about what's coming, let's say in the next 18 months for nonprofits in our community? I'll let any of you and all of you answer that question.
I think the thing that we're most apprehensive about is discrimination towards sexual and gender minorities, and losing our federal funding because of our commitment to uphold our values and continuing to serve sexual and gender minorities and transgender folks in particular. And so we have just made a commitment to keep doing what we're doing no matter what. I think philanthropy, we live and die by federal grants. Federal funding has been the anchor for everything that we've done. And philanthropy has played a big role, but I think philanthropy, we may need philanthropy to play a bigger role than it has in the past, because we may lose some of our funding because of our decisions to continue to serve the entire community with the dignity and respect that they deserve. But our commitment will be unwavering. And thank you. I think just the paralyzing anxiety that I see on the faces of our patients that come in who say, I'm afraid to go out because I don't know if I can go to the bathroom, or I'm afraid I'm going to lose my job because of my gender expression. Those things are really real, and they're at an all-time, that level, sense of anxiety is at an and stress is at an all-time high. And the relief that they feel when they're affirmed, when they walk through our doors, is incredible. And that's something I'm really proud of. And I hope that the philanthropic support from, the philanthropic support from the foundation and from the people in the room will continue, even as we kind of try to navigate turbulent times.
Lisa, next 18 months, what's on your mind? What kind of keeps you up at night?
Everything Amy said is very good. We do see a large concentration of young people who have experienced and are leaving foster care who identify as LGBTQI and plus. And, even just last night in Washington, there was a celebration, a 25-year celebration of the Federal Chafee Act that provides funding to all 50 states for young people in foster care, and a number of national experts, lived experts, were there speaking with members of Congress, and one of the members of Congress met and shook the hand of an advocate who mentioned the importance of supporting the trans community, and that member called the Capitol Police and had that person arrested and charged with assault. And all of the young people there thought that this was a safe space to advocate and address their needs. So I think we feel that concern very, very deeply. I think a lot about our workforce, the commitments that we've made at Foster Forward. Last January, we made the important decision to ensure that our lowest paid full-time person made at least $50,000 a year. We felt that that was a housing wage in Rhode Island, and we couldn't expect our staff to work with young people who were housing insecure or experiencing homelessness when they themselves were experiencing those challenges. Holding the line on that commitment and the loss of funding across the board is going to be difficult for us, but I think it's something that we'll continue to drive to accomplish. So I think both on the policy front and the human impact front, the funding piece, and then just also the overall level of need of Rhode Islanders. Looking at the Blue Cross report and the quality of life index, the number going down, we are seeing more people who need help, people who haven't needed help before. And I know that the report says only together, and I think only together we're going to be able to figure this out. But it's definitely something that will keep us up at night in the months to come.
Lamont, I'll give you the last word on this. What keeps you up at night running a nonprofit for the next, let's say, 18 months?
Listen, we work with undocumented students, and they and their families are concerned about their place right now in terms of the talks around mass deportation. Work with low-income families who depend on the Affordable Care Act, and there's been all the rhetoric around the threats to that. College affordability is really important for our families, and so recent efforts to help with loan relief and debt relief, we're concerned about that. So there are multiple issues that we're concerned about. As an organization, we don't receive directly a lot of government funding, or particularly ARPA money, but we do run a college and career exploration program in partnership with the Providence Public Schools, and some of that money comes from ARPA. So we are concerned about sort of the future of that program. And just on a little bit of a tangent, in terms of schools, there are two things that I really appreciate about this sort of 5-year action plan. One is what David was saying earlier in terms of this doubling down on equity. You know, when you're in the trenches, when you're doing this work, and when your work is centered on equity, and you're working in an environment where there's such a backlash, to have the foundation really double down is really important. But the other thing in terms of the funding is, you know, I live in the world of education, and when we talk about schools, so much of the conversations around fixing schools, there's often not a recognition that schools don't operate in a vacuum, right? Schools are part of communities. And and to some extent, the challenges we see in schools are a reflection of what's in the communities. Not to pathologize and blame parents and families, but the point is the walls are permeable. And so, in my mind, to have healthy schools, you need healthy communities. And what I appreciate about this strategy is that it's a multifaceted approach to addressing complex problems. And that's what's needed for the communities and for our schools and the students and families that we work with.
Really well said. Lamont, Lisa, Amy, thank you very much.
You've been listening to a recording of our live event on the future focus of the Rhode Island Foundation. We'll be back with a regular episode next week. Rhode Island Report is a production of the Boston Globe in collaboration with Rhode Island PBS. Today's episode was produced by Megan Hall. Our music is from APM. Be sure to follow us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen. I'm Ed Fitzpatrick. See you next week. Looking to binge watch all your favorite PBS shows? You need Rhode Island PBS Passport.